So you know how to follow the blue dot on your phone, but can you actually read the map that's underneath it? Navigation is one of the most important skills for hikers and backcountry enthusiasts, but so often gets overlooked. In fact, getting lost is one of the top reasons that people call for search and rescue in BC. Welcome to Maps and Mountains 101. I'm Alex Mack, I'm an ACMG Apprentice hiking guide, and in this series we'll be walking through the navigation fundamentals that can make or break your adventure plans. Plus, we'll be providing a ton of practical resources that you can use to expand your navigation skills throughout the entire series. To kick off this series, this episode will go over some map fundamentals, including the best map formats to use for your adventures. So to start, let's define some common terms that you'll see in here related to maps. In Canada, you'll often see the term NTS. This stands for the National Topographic System, which is a standardized grid-based system used to create topographic maps covering the entire country. Topography is a term that essentially represents the features of the Earth's surface, such as mountains, valleys, and roads, so a topographic map translates that 3D terrain into 2 dimensions. All maps have a scale which represents the ratio of the distance on the map to the actual distance on the ground. The most common NTS scale is 1 to 50,000, where 1 centimeter on the map equals 500 meters on land, so here each grid square represents 1 kilometer. The smaller that second number, the more detailed the map, and vice versa. So here, this 1 to 20,000 scale gives us way more detail than the 1 to 50,000 scale, whereas this map on the 1 to 150,000 scale covers way more area but way less detail, so it's useful for regional planning, but not what you take with you into the backcountry. On digital maps, your scale bar is shown here in the lower corner and shifts dynamically as you zoom in and out of the map. So in this case, our detail and resolution are determined by the zoom action, giving us more flexibility within a given map. So how can we use our map to measure the distance of our route? On our paper maps, we can take a piece of string, like the one on my compass, and measure the segments of our route. If we lay it along the route and follow every curve and bend, then straighten it and measure it against the scale bar, we get the estimate of our horizontal walking distance. On digital map apps like Granite, we can use the route planning tools to measure our distance, and in this case, we even have the option to snap to established trails. This gives us the route's horizontal distance as well as vertical gain, which is equally, if not more crucial to route planning, and we'll be exploring more in the next episodes. So now that we've covered those fundamentals, how do we choose our map? This might come as a surprise, but paper maps are still the gold standard in the backcountry, and that's because they don't require battery power or cell signal like our mobile devices. BC Adventure Smart recommends bringing both a waterproof paper map and a proper digital maps app, and by proper, unfortunately, Google Maps doesn't make the cut here. We're specifically looking for an app with topographic maps like Granite, which uses the same topographic data as your NTS paper maps. So you get the same terrain information, but have the added features of exploring different layers and data. Toggle on the avalanche data or terrain ratings for your planned route, and download everything offline before your trip. So there's some really interesting data behind all of this. In a recent year, 107 search and rescue incidents in BC were directly tied to people getting lost with no form of navigation. And according to the British Columbia Search and Rescue Association, learning how to read a map could have prevented at least 271 search and rescue missions in a year alone. It's also important to remember that these are all volunteer teams responding 24 hours a day at no cost to the public that they rescue. There's a great BC Adventure Smart webinar on communications and technology in the backcountry, which is linked below, along with some other fantastic resources. In the next episode of Maps and Mountains 101, we'll dive deeper into topography, specifically what all of these lines and colors are telling you about the terrain. See you there.